Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is James Duggan with IGN, and I'm here with Steve Gibson, Vice President at Gearbox, and we are talking about Battleborn, and specifically in this video, the crazy cast and all the different roles and all the different archetypes that you can play. You have a cast of 25 characters. So there are some like Oscar Mike that are more conventional, but the majority of the cast is totally nuts. Miko the Mushroom Person springs to mind, or maybe Boulder, who's kind of a dwarf warrior akin to Lord of the Rings. How do these characters interact with each other on a team, and are there certain combos that players can execute with enough coordination?
Oh, sure. So, yeah, we are very, very excited about the idea of when we committed to 25 characters. What that enabled us to do is actually take each archetype and explore them further. So something that is really interesting is like when you say, hey, I have a cast of, say, 4 to 5 character classes, you need to make, honestly, as safer choices when it comes to building those archetypes. When we're at 25, though, we can go to the more extremes of what those character classes do, and we can also explore, what happens there. And throw on top of that the idea of each character has their own helix, so they can go even further. So the iterations can't even count. It's bananas what you can do with all these things. So yes, you can imagine like the healer combined with a tank combined with a melee guy doing things like the scenarios that you would expect. But what we're really, really excited about is the idea that because these things are so flexible and because there are so many possibilities, there's going to be stuff we just did not expect, and that's the idea behind Battleborn, is that people are going to explore this and come to different combinations that we have never considered.
So riffing off of exactly what you just said, we have, like, Miko and Boulder were the early examples, and they are a healer and tank respectively, and that's maybe paraphrasing a bit, but does having a dedicated healer and tank benefit your team versus having all damage dealers, and have there been any team compositions that have emerged during playtesting that have just been way above what other teams are bringing to the table?
Yeah, so we've actually seen a few things. I think one of my favorite is depending on the story mission that you're in, sometimes the composition is going to make a lot more sense. For example, there are a couple of story missions where, to me, the most entertaining thing is actually 5 melee characters, and you're just drawing aggro like crazy. And what happens is, if you get them all pulled in, you can actually just stun and just destroy these guys. If you have at least one character who can aggro and pull them into your little pod of
melee death. Right.
So the other ideas that we really enjoy, though, is like the idea of, say, give me 4 range characters and a healer. That's super methodical, where the guy's just sitting there and the healer's just sitting there with all those guys, and they're all just picking them off as they go. The fact that what you can do is you can make these really odd combinations, and you go to the extremes. Some range guys are really good at just taking one particular guy and picking them up, headshotting them, but other guys, they actually have like range AoE. So for example, you have one of the range characters as Marquis de Caliber. He has a time warping owl, as you would expect he would. And
I can't believe anybody would ever say that, but I'm surprised I heard that sentence.
I'm surprised that has not happened yet in our industry. So our apologies if it's a bit of a trope, really. But like,
how dare you?
Yeah. So we brought in this stereotypical time warping owl, and he will send out that owl time warp this area where he'll freeze a whole bunch of people. And then you have the other sniping guys who can benefit from that. And so the ideas are like multiple snipers who can complement each other, or even a thing. Whereas it used to be, and your typical shooter's like, well, there's 4 snipers. That's pretty annoying, but I know what to expect.
Okay. So let's say I love playing Miko, but I hate healing, which is strange because there's 24 other characters.
Yeah, you've made a weird choice.
I don't know why I'm playing Miko, but let's say I am that guy.
Yes.
Can I play Miko in Battleborn and fulfill a different role than what is kind of expected of that character? Could Miko be a damage dealer, basically?
Yeah, so firstly, you will apologize to your other 4 co-players for showing up as a healer and not healing. Assuming you can sort that emotional situation out, yes, you can play Miko as different kinds of things, and there are the unexpected uses of these classes. And if you do your gear just right, you combine with your command rank and all that stuff, you can actually spec out Miko to be a very different kind of thing, because that's what the idea, the skill helix and all that stuff actually comes all together to do. But you're going to have a really awkward conversation as you are the healer who's not healing anybody.
All right, so you brought it up. Let's talk about gear. What can you tell me about gear? I'm very perplexed as to how it fits into a game where the progression resets, at least one progression resets every time you finish a mission. So is the gear mission specific, a lot like your helix system, or is it more persistent, like your command rank? What's the deal there?
So gear is really going to be a thing where you have to kind of experience, and perhaps when people get their hands on, they'll really get it. But I think a good thing to point to is, imagine, say, Ooh, a class mod from Borderlands 2.
Okay.
You remember how those things, like, well, they're kind of weirdly hard to define. They do plug into particular things, and they affect particular things, and they're very powerful.
And they ended up being some of my favorite loot in the game.
Right.
It's like, oh, I never have to reload? Great.
Yeah,
Cool.
so you're talking that kind of world where, like, that's really hard to just explain unless you've actually played, a game and got your hands on it, because, like, that could be all kinds of things. And it also is really more specific to characters in some cases, and other times it's not. Like, there's a lot of different things that can happen there. So,
and it sounds like we'll hear more about it as you guys progress.
Yeah, as we get closer to the launch, yeah.
Can you have a group of more than one of the same Battleborn on a team?
Yes. That is also, it's something that we've talked about, though, is the idea is that you can, actually I think it's in the already thing, is that you can specifically set a setting like, well, there's only one of this Battleborn per story or PvP mode.
Oh, okay,
so
all right.
So
it's up to the player to decide.
It's up to the player.
Okay.
If you want 5 thorns, whatever.
So how do you balance having more than one of the same Battleborn on a team? How do you combat the trolliness of it all?
Well, I mean, the idea is that, like, people will be able to exploit whatever weakness that creates, right? Like, if you have, 5 thorns, like, those dudes are really, really mobile and annoying, but also, like, I can counterpick, right? Like, you see that in PvP games a lot where, like, you understand what the people are doing. So that's the world of PvP. People will choose classes to be as annoying as possible to other people. Like, that's what you're supposed to do, is not make friends when you're playing PvP. They're supposed to, like, you want to defeat these guys, right?
Yeah, you want to grief a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm not above it. So are you expecting players to play all 25 of the Battleborn, or do you think that people are going to gravitate towards 1 or maybe 2? And what have you seen so far in playtesting, and how are you preparing for that?
Dude, we are doing everything we can to make it so that people do not feel like they are stuck to one Battleborn. I think in the earlier stuff we talked about, the ideas of, like, how the skill helix works for this story, and how the command rank and the player rank, all that stuff, all builds into the idea that you can switch classes really pretty much at any time, and the idea is that you're going to experience it all, and you're not going to feel like, well, I've invested so much time, I'm only going to play as this Battleborn. So we're doing everything through the story and PvP to all build around the idea that you're going to play all these things. So far, the good news is, as far as what we've seen, is we've actually charted what people have played as, and it is absurdly balanced as far as what people have selected. When we did our pre-E3 event and we did the E3 event, we actually charted, like, what do people select? And that's based on they've never played it before. What do they think is interesting? And it is within percentage points, like single digits of what they've selected, which is honestly baffling, because Borderlands was not that. Everybody played as 0 the first time, right? Because he did the cool double sword stab thing, like, so.
And he was the sniper,
right,
and he had the cool
like,
helmet.
So
yeah. It was stacked in his favor.
So it's really odd and happily surprising that people are trying all the different ones at first, and they're not just, because I think of the diversity is so strong. It's not so much we're like, well, I'm going to be the thing. Like, we really thought, like, it'd be Oscar Mike, because he's the typical shooter guy, right?
So let's say I am one of those players who absolutely falls in love with one character. I've always played a dwarf. I'm going to continue to play a dwarf. I want to play Boulder exclusively. Is there enough depth to that character to keep me entertained with the Helix system and the command rank, do you think?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. This is built for so much more replayability. The whole idea is with the gear, with the skill helix, but more with the character leveling and the command rank. The idea is that you could keep coming back, and this is a hobby almost kind of a situation where when you played Borderlands, like, there was a lot of people who gravitated towards it as a hobby, and we took a lot of those lessons, and we think we've done it even better this time around.
Awesome. Continuing on the train of replayability, once the game launches, can we expect to see Battleborn post-launch?
Honestly, I hope that's the world we're in. Right now, that's not being built, but if the game is feeling like it's going to be successful, I think that would be evaluated, but that's a publisher kind of situation as well. We need to finish the game, and we need to see, like, how excited are people about the game, right? And, like, you kind of make that decision right when you're getting close to launch, and that's how we did with Borderlands 1. Borderlands 2, that we're like, well, we're pretty sure, so we made some decisions earlier, and it was a little bit more connected as far as, like, we just kind of jammed it in Borderlands 1. We decided at the very last minute. So we took some lessons there, applied it to Borderlands 2, a little bit smoother, right? You could actually have fast travels throughout your DLCs in Borderlands 2, like I'm saying. So with Battleborn, we're taking those lessons and applying it, and we're building it with the possibility. But right now, we don't know. But we hope, we pray that people like the game enough to justify it.
Fantastic. So it's something you'd like to do if there is enough support for it.
Dude, if people love the game and they're saying they want more, man, I sure as heck would expect that 2K and Gearbox would get together and say, let's make more.
Fantastic.
But right now, that's not happening until we know.
Right. The game has not even gone into any kind of beta stage, so I know it's premature of me to ask, but that being said, like when I jump into a game like this that is persistent, that is online, that is social,
yeah.
I want to see, okay, am I going to fall in love with this thing and then just be left out in the cold, or is there potentially going to be things for me post-launch? But it sounds like you guys are willing, you just don't know if you're able
right,
yet.
Yeah, so we feel like we've learned a lot of lessons that we think we could, if the demand is there, we think we could do it. It's just a matter of, do people want it? And yeah, I imagine how people react to that beta will really inform that.
Fantastic. Steve Gibson, Vice President at Gearbox, thank you so much for coming here to talk about all the different Battleborn, as well as the game Battleborn, so much Battleborn, and for all things Battleborn, keep it right here on IGN.